All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today. For you guys who haven't met me yet, my name is Sarah, and I am part of the admissions team here at App Academy. So it's essentially my team's job to make sure that every unanswered question that you guys might have in regards to the admission process actually goes answered. So at the end of the night, I do have a couple business cards, and you just grab me if you need anything. Any question, anything like about like maybe your cat or your dog, or actually like some food around the area, or even actually about the admissions process, feel free to grab me. What's that? Blue. Actually, no, App Academy Red. App Academy Red. I would switch that. Yeah, definitely. So we just are gonna have a couple questions listed out that we have our alumni panel that are so kindly going to answer for us, and then we'll also have a question and answer portion at the end of it, where if you guys have any questions, we'll be able to ask them, and we'll have a lovely panel answer. Great. Cool. So just a couple quick facts about App Academy. For you guys who are wondering, what is App Academy? It's a 12-week web development course and job placement program in San Francisco and New York City. It was started by Ned and Kush in 2012. Fun fact is that they met in the University of Chicago. Ned was a developer before starting the company, and Kush was working in India. Our first class had about 15 students, and we're now on an average of 66 in San Francisco and 30 in New York City. Currently to date, we've had over 700 students graduate from App Academy, which is great also. So I've had the opportunity to speak to a couple of you guys on the phone, maybe through Skype, and a lot of the questions I get answered, they're like, yeah, Sarah, I get it. You guys have a 98% job placement fee. Yeah. We do 90% of our programs actually working on projects, so we have over 20 projects for our portfolios. But what does that mean? What does it mean to be part of App Academy, and what does that mean to be an alumni? Tonight's really dedicated to make sure that we are able to answer any questions, anything that I'm not able to answer as an alumni, but really what our alumni can do for you. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our alumni for tonight.
Hi, I'm Maggie. I can't see what's written there on the screen. I work at Tubular Labs. And I graduated in June 2014. I work at Tubular Labs. I've been working there since I graduated, and my background is in user experience research.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Keyson. I graduated October 2014. I'm currently a back-end engineer at Bleacher Report, and in my past life, I was a mechanical engineer at a medical device company.
Cool. My name is Scott Nelson. I'm a software engineer at University, it says. Graduated last winter, so 2015, I guess it would be.
Hi, I'm Ziliana, and I'm a software engineer at Indiegogo. I graduated June 2014. I was in Maggie's cohort.
Hi, my name is Ronnie Chen. I graduated in the June cohort of 2014. I work for Braintree, which is a PayPal company, as it says here, and I work on the back end in data architecture.
All right, guys, thank you so much for introducing yourselves. So up next, we will start. I have a few questions that we already have for you guys, and then, so Maggie went over this a little bit, but what were you guys doing before App Academy, and what was your motivation to apply? Ronnie, you have the mic.
So the last job that I worked before I started App Academy was as a sous chef at a fine dining restaurant. My background is actually in theoretical physics, so I took a very circuitous route. And the reason that I wanted to attend App Academy is because I was looking to leave cooking, and as a career path, it was long term, not what I wanted to do. And so I wanted to get back into STEM, and App Academy offered me a way to do that without spending 4 years and paying for another degree. And specifically, App Academy let me do that without very much financial risk.
Cool. My background was in molecular genetics, education-wise. right after college, I was a project manager for a little bit, and doing my senior thesis, that's how I got into programming. But it was a little too late to switch majors, so I just thought I would learn it on the job as a project manager. And I did a little bit, but not. I wasn't moving as fast as I hoped for. And then that's when I heard about App Academy, so I was like, I could either do this for another year and then get a junior engineer position, hopefully a year from now at the same company I'm at, or just leave it and do it in 3 months. So I switched.
Yeah. So my background is in math, and I started working as a mobile developer for like 6 months after college, and I found that I wasn't learning nearly as fast as I had hoped because I had a background in math, but I only taken like a couple CS classes. So then I realized like I could do App Academy and actually get there in like 9 weeks, as opposed to like you were saying, like 2 years and like maybe get sort of a junior role, hopefully move up. So yeah, that was pretty much the motivation. And one of my really good friends had done it and recommended it to me. So
as I said, in my past life, I was doing mechanical engineering. I did that for about 3.5 years out of college, and realized that I wasn't gonna make it through my 30s enjoying what I was doing at that moment. And I think, like many people here, I saw the Facebook ads for App Academy. I was like, that can't be true, right? And then it so happened that a friend of a friend went to a different boot camp out in Colorado, and I was able just to email him and kind of maintain a communication. And it seemed like boot camps were a viable alternative to like education today. I started the admissions process for I think University of Oregon State, or Oregon State University, to do their like online bachelor's program or post-bac program, but to do it over a period of 2 years versus 3 months, and I really was itching to get out of what I was doing previously. It just made sense to me.
So I was doing UX research previously, and I very much liked. I was coding for that. I knew R and Python, and I would do my data analysis in that. And when that I had an internship that sort of ended, and my friend said, "You know what? You really like coding. I see it in your face when you're on the computer and you're doing your work, and you should do that for a living." And he recommended App Academy. So we were a friend of a friend that did that, and I applied and got in.
Sounds great, guys. All right, so there are thousands and thousands of boot camps out there. What made you guys be like, yes, App Academy is my jam. This is where I'm going?
So I was recommended by a friend. I was actually incredibly skeptical of this whole, like, you're going to learn how to be a software engineer in 12 weeks. So I did a lot more work before the course. And actually, what really gave me confidence was the application process. The application process for App Academy is very non-trivial. And I'm sure we'll discuss it later. But it was the rigor of, like, they're not just letting anyone in here. They're really testing our knowledge of our ability to code, and our who we are, and they're not just taking any random bozo, and that made me feel a lot more comfortable. I am personally very affected by the people that I'm learning around, and if people around me aren't motivated, then I won't be motivated. What I found when I got to App Academy, everybody was super motivated, everybody was super smart, and it really, it was what I had hoped it would be. It really pushed me to do my best. So that was why App Academy.
So I actually was living in Los Angeles at the time, and I read about App Academy online through one of these or boot camp review websites, and it was one of the ones in SF that got a great review. Researching it further, it was very, as Ronnie said, low risk, because you don't pay a lot upfront compared to the other boot camps where a lot of people take out loans and stuff just to pay it off. Whereas App Academy, you didn't pay until you got a job. and that was for me like very low risk. Besides just like living expenses at the time. Also, it's just like SF is a great location for tech and for these programming jobs. So you have a wealth or huge demand of programmers in this area.
Yeah, I think that it's similar to that. I mean, like I said, like one of my friends recommended it to me. And also when I was doing research, I was looking for some of the more selective programs because I'd heard like some, like I think that I was going to like bash some other programs, but I'm not going to do that. Just some other programs I think are easier and sort of expect you to learn a little bit from the program and then keep learning a lot after. And like I wanted to do the program and then get a job. So that was a big like pull for me. And also like, yeah, being in San Francisco, like where else are you going to get like this kind of experience around all these other tech companies?
I think everyone has pretty much covered it. The biggest one for me was I didn't want to take a loan. I had enough college debt. So it was a great. App Academy sounds awesome. So I started the application process. And I did a couple of other ones, and it was just App Academy actually made you code before you got in. That made me super confident.
I think for me, like the biggest thing was that since App Academy doesn't get paid until I found a job, I knew that they were the company that was like motivated to help me find a job. Whereas for the other ones, you pay up front and like they can advertise that they'll help you find it. But I knew that like in this case, like our interests were very much aligned, and they were just as motivated to help me get my job. And I found like after taking it, like the post-course curriculum that was like helping you do the job search and thinking about that actually was like as valuable as the programming part.
Cool. So you guys, can some of you guys give us an example of how you guys prepared for the admissions process? What steps did you take to prepare for like the first coding challenge and the second coding challenge and then the final coding challenge?
I can answer that first. Like I said, I got into programming my senior year in college. I did mostly MATLAB and R, things that are very languages that are made for people that are not coders. They're made for scientists. So it's a very different syntax. It's very prettified for people that's not their main thing. And as a project manager, most of the stuff that I did was basic CSS changes, deployments, crazy gits, commands. So yeah, honestly, I felt like I was one of the coming in. I had cohort mates that had already been freelancing, already had CS degrees, so I was definitely on the lower end. It was great. I need to teach myself Ruby before I even finish the application. So it was a lot of just literally doing that 9 to 5 for, I would say, 3 weeks. And then passing the first coding challenge, doing that again, doing the second one. And then in between that and actually starting the cohort, I actually had to ask Kush to let me into an earlier cohort. So I had less time to study than most people. It's a joke now. Didn't finish the Hardle tutorial, but I tried. So a lot of their materials that they give you are super helpful. So I would say definitely go over them. I would try to at least finish some basic static page. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's definitely like what I was doing as well. I think that for me, it was the prep work they gave out. Like I remember they had like this repository or something of these are the questions you're gonna get. Yeah, it's really helpful. Like they give you that for a reason. It's similar to what you're gonna get. So I'd recommend like knowing those like very well. Also, I think that like just getting comfortable, like just programming in like a certain language, like it's gonna be Ruby. So like even if you know another language, just get used to that syntax because that can actually throw you off a bit. Also, I feel like it's sounding a little bit intimidating. Like everyone has like a math background or CS background. Like, I felt like that helped in the beginning of the program, and then everyone was pretty much on like the same level by a couple weeks in, because it's very different, I think, to like be like a developer than it is to be a CS major or a math major or anything else. It's like a whole other beast. So I just wanted to add that as well.
That's a great answer. Anyone else?
I was really convinced that I was going to do poorly in spite of my sciencey background and knowing R and Python. I worked really hard. I did the Harl tutorial twice. So I went through it and then I went back through it as I was building. I built my personal website. Not a great, I promise, it was not a great accomplishment at the time. At the time, I was very proud. I was thoroughly unconvinced that 12 weeks was going to turn me into a software engineer. I worked really hard. All of the Pine book, I think, is maybe still on there. Yeah, and the Harl tutorial. I did, let's see here, several coding challenge sites, CoderByte, Code Wars, and then there's Project Euler. So if you guys are familiar with any of those, I would actually highly recommend those as you're like learning Ruby or learning how to code and preparing for the coding challenges that are part of the application process. I think that's the best way to prepare for that stuff is to code, and especially CoderByte I think is really good because they have the beginning coding challenges, and I found those incredibly helpful, as well as like other online tutorials, Ruby centric or Python centric.
Cool.
Since I'm the last one, the way I prepared even before I knew I was going to go to boot camp, just as intro to programming and coding, I pretty much scoured at the time Code Academy website. They didn't have the same tracks that you probably get right now, and it wasn't that in depth. But what I got was just like how to do everything in PHP, which I don't use at all, but like JavaScript, Ruby, Python, just getting all the basics down. Definitely one of the things that will really throw you off during the admissions process is having someone watch you as you code. I think it's just really weird at the time before you jump into pair programming, but to someone like critique you as you're coding and like to be on this time limit, it really helps if you're prepared beforehand, or else like if you're not ready, you might stumble, and the more you stumble and you're under pressure, like it's really hard to pick yourself back up. So really prepare like all those coding websites that Maggie mentioned, and just going through those challenges to make sure that you don't stumble on the spot.
I have another one. Time yourself. Especially, that's right, I always tell people to do this. Time yourself, especially when you don't know what you're doing, so that especially when you're solving a problem you haven't solved before. Time yourself. And I know that sounds terrifying, but just the idea of a timer going, that's very similar to somebody to like an interview or somebody watching you code. You'll also get comfortable with how long it takes you to figure things out. I'll bet you, I'd be willing to bet everyone here a burrito that it doesn't take as long as you think it takes for you to figure something out. So that amount of confidence is really helpful.
What kind of burrito? We're from? I'm just kidding. We don't have to go into mission taquerias, but all right. So you guys got in, woo, super excited. What was something that you didn't expect enrolling into App Academy? What was like, holy crap, I wish I knew this before entering App Academy moment for you guys?
I'll go first. It's definitely, no matter like how many times they tell you, it's going to be anywhere between 70 to 100 hours per week. You cannot be ready I feel like you cannot be ready for that. Like, I don't think I ever worked that much in college or even at a job that really prepared me for that. And it's really just getting your mindset, put everything else aside for these 12 weeks. And as one of the TAs said, you have 12 weeks to change your life. Why not put your all in those 12 weeks? And so it's really just being mentally prepared and sticking with it. It's really a sprint at that moment, and in time and in your life that you really need to pick up things really quickly and as much as you can, because you just build and build on top of what you know or what you learned like the previous day.
Yeah, I was gonna say something pretty similar to that. I mean, the only thing I would add is that, well, one thing I think the hardest part is like the first 9 weeks, really. So if that at least sounds a little bit more digestible, um, it's just 9 weeks. But yeah, I mean, like, just I would also recommend just like getting a routine ready quickly, figuring out like what you can handle or not in terms of like your social life, other things like that, because then that'll help you sort of deal with that time constraint.
I definitely had like expect to not see your friends. Like I told my friends I'm not gonna see you for 3 months, and I think I saw my best friend once, and I had lunch with an ex-coworker once. So I had 2 social activities. Like literally just pretend you're going on hiatus. Because that's what you should be doing. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful. I would say at the time people lived in. So for me, App Academy was a 24/7 type of deal, and I definitely think I benefited more than the people that didn't live in. So now that's not an option for you. So I would say don't make it just because you're home. It doesn't mean you get to have dinner and relax in front of the TV before you go back to your readings. Because honestly, you don't have time. You literally have to read while you're eating. So prepare for that.
It's probably good that you guys can't live there. App Academy smells so much better now. So.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest surprise, was walking in on day one and being like, I think I just made the biggest mistake, because there were cots and there were sleeping bags, and I was just like, what did I walk into? But yeah, I think like I did expect the hours, and like coming from the restaurant background, I'm like, at least I wasn't on fire, so I was okay with it. But I think the hardest thing for me was that the coursework is set so that even like if you're new to this, there's TAs there and everything's like very well explained, but there's also bonus problems, bonus like additions, how to, like ideas on how to refine your project. And so if you do have more of a background, there's challenges there too. And so what that means is at the end of the day, there's always something more for you to do. Like if you wanted to do that, you could spend like 20 hours a day and still not be done with everything for that day. And there's a point at which you just need to walk away and be like, I've learned as much as I'm going to, and I can come back to this later, and set that limit of like, what is the balance with like how much sleep I need, like how much I can actually retain, and just draw that line. And so there were times when like I did not do the reading, and I did fine. There are times when you just have to say like, this is as much as I'm willing to push myself, and that's the healthy balance for me.
I'm totally with you, Ronnie. Knowing when to say, all right, that's enough. I'm going to sleep now. I think the most jarring thing for me was pair programming every day. The first day, I actually admittedly had a terrible partner. He ended up dropping out of the course. I know, it was really sad, but it scared the ever-loving crap out of me, and I mean it was a very like it was socially so much more intense than I really anticipated. But at the same time, like it really, having those intense days really made me say, okay, this is what I'm doing now, and this is all I'm going to be doing for the next, 9 weeks at least. The pair programming part is 9 weeks. And I let's see here. I did actually, to Ronnie's point of knowing when you're going to stop, I did make a point of getting a full night of sleep just about every night. If only because I get very snippy if I don't get sleep. So I think that was really, but the skill of being able to communicate and knowing what is rude and knowing what is like what is grading to
Wait,
people.
was that the skill that you learned at App Academy?
Yes. No, I mean, well, in terms of being able to code with other people. Because let me tell you something. Like, other engineers don't understand that. Like, my boss literally stole my computer for like 4 hours. Yes.
Can't do that for a developer.
No, you can't do that for it. I was just pacing the office going, I was supposed to meet somebody for dinner 2 hours ago. You suck.
Sorry, I have one addition to that. That is definitely a skill that you're gonna use at your job, just being able to communicate technically in a way that doesn't piss off or annoy or obfuscate whoever it is that you're talking to. And for me, I like hardcore examples. So I think it's Code School, some school in New York. Google it. They actually have it on their website or whatever. The rules of I don't know, pairing. Things like probably don't start your sentence with actually the way blah blah blah. I would Google it. It's really good. I like examples. If you like examples, look at that.
Sounds good. Well, I'll have to look at that when we're pairing. So I think a couple of you guys kind of harped on this too, but what was the one thing that you guys found to be the most challenging aspect of just being a part of the Academy?
I mean, it's definitely the pairing, right? Every single, like, all of the programming that you typically do right now is by yourself, and you understand everything that you intend to do. And the first time, like, you had to try to explain to someone else and they have a completely different idea for how they want to solve this problem, or worse, like, you know that they're wrong and their thing doesn't work, but they won't listen to you. Like, it's incredibly frustrating. But like, that is day-to-day software engineering, right? Like, you have a bigger team that you're working with, and a lot of times, like, they're editing code at the same time that you are. And so being able to communicate and having a shared idea of what you're building and what that should look like, even as you're building different parts, so it doesn't look like Frankenstein's monster, is really important. And that's like day-to-day. So it's talking with people who have different coding styles, different techniques, different thoughts on how things should be laid out, and coming to terms with it. And sometimes you're going to be the person that's ahead and you're doing more teaching. Sometimes you're the person that's behind, or sometimes you're in sync, and sometimes you're looking at the clock waiting for the next break. But no matter what it is, like, all of those things will happen at your job too. And being like, I work in a company that is very big on pair programming. So that's my day-to-day life as well. And having exposure to that and being able to work as part of a team to write code is like the most valuable thing. Like, being able to communicate about what I intend to do and how I intend to do it.
So we also have a live stream, and I'm not sure. Can you just, Ronnie, can you go into a little bit more detail of what paired programming is, and then just talk about it like at App Academy, and then what do you do at your job as well? Great.
So paired programming is, the general idea is that like two heads are better than one. And so at App Academy, you literally have one keyboard and two monitors, right? And the monitors are mirrored so that you both see the same thing. And when you first get started, they encourage you to set a timer. And so it's at 15-minute intervals, you guys switch. And during this time, one person is called the driver and one person is called the navigator. And so the driver is the person that's literally typing at the keyboard, and the navigator is the one that's giving directions. But I mean, there's still, like, as the driver, you kind of have veto power, right? Because you can just say, like, no, like, I'm not going to type that. But the key thing is that, like, if you as a navigator have an idea, you have to be able to communicate it so that the driver can do that. And then when you're, like, working, it's usually less formal, right? You're not setting a 15-minute timer and then, like, when it goes off, switching. But there is this kind of like, oh, I know how to do this, can I drive? Or someone will say, like, I don't have the context for this. But, and so, you know, whoever drives is based on who has the most experience or who needs to learn or that kind of thing. But since you're both watching, you can give each other feedback when the other person is typing about how to, you know, refactor this, any typos that you missed, any ideas that come on. And so it's a constant dialogue. And what you get used to as you're doing this is talking about what you're thinking. It's a stream of consciousness, and you're narrating that. And that forces you to have a much better idea of what you're going to write. You have a very clear like vision that you communicate ahead of time, and it helps you plan out your code a lot better.
Ronnie gave a great description. I should really note that we at App Academy, they're pretty strict about the timers. They do 15 minutes, I think 15 minutes per each person until a break. So they're very they try to be strict just to enforce the format, so that with so many people, they need to make sure that one person isn't necessarily just steamrolling the other person. And because also do pairs still switch every day? You have a different pair every day, yeah.
Yes.
And so so it's important to make sure that with every individual that you're with, you still get the amount of time driving and coding, and the amount of time navigating and thinking through the problems.
At my job, we also do a lot of pairing, but the one experience where I definitely benefited from was this summer when we had interns. All of our interns were assigned a mentor, so they were our mentee. And people with CS backgrounds don't ever necessarily pair program. And just having, as a rule, if you're the person that quote unquote knows less, you should probably be the driver. Just getting the muscle memory in and hearing what you should be typing makes you question why, and it gives you a better understanding. It's just going through the motions of getting that in. But that's about a year for everyone that hasn't gone through App Academy down the road. So what you can do right now is, as you're studying for your application or anything like that, what I did is I just got in touch with a couple of people that were also applying too. And we weren't, I was in San Francisco, one of them was in LA, another one was in somewhere in the East Bay. And we literally just Google Hangout while we tried to do the review homeworks, problems, and then we went over them. Oh, how did you do it? Oh, let's do it again. Let's time ourselves. And we didn't really think of it as pair programming at the time, but that's kind of what we were doing. We were explaining why we solved a particular problem one way. We compared notes, and that pair programming is just pretty much doing that live. And like we said, go to Project Euler, CoderByte, and find a problem, find someone to talk something through it, and it's like, okay, great, let's solve it. That's what you can do for now.
One more thing that I wanted to add is that as a new programmer, you don't have a sense of what is good code and what is bad code, and what is good design and what is bad design. You only know that this is what you wrote. And so one of the most important things about pair programming is exposing you to those other things, and it helps to cultivate your taste, basically, and it helps inform your style. And so you'll start to be able to recognize if someone does something, you're like, oh, this is really cool. It teaches you little tips and tricks. It teaches you patterns of thinking that you wouldn't have come up with on your own. And so you come out of it the best of everybody that you've ever had the ability to code with.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right. So what do you guys think made you really successful in App Academy? What was it that you guys kind of had that you're like, yeah, this was great. I'm so glad I did this every day?
Yes.
Ready.
Yes. No. Definitely all the prep work that I did beforehand. I got to the class and people were like, oh, the Harl tutorial? Don't worry. People were like, I didn't even start that. Okay.
One of them sitting up here? No.
No.
I didn't finish it. I started it.
Yeah, you at least started it. Let me tell you something. All right. This is not the norm, by the way. Most people do a whole bunch of work beforehand. Most people are very well prepared. But every so often you get a person who's like, I haven't done anything. And you're like, well, all right. I have to say that the work I did beforehand, going through the Pine book, going through the Harl tutorial, taking the time to build my personal website, and just kind of and doing all those coding exercises and taking the time to sit with code and solve problems was hugely important. This is not to say I didn't struggle. I definitely struggled. I mean, the whole, like, I really hadn't done that much with JavaScript or Backbone. Like, that was the hardest part for me. But I was I mentioned before that I tried to make sure that I got a full night of sleep every night. I was perhaps uniquely able to do that because I had done a lot of prep work, and I just can't, when I talk to people who are thinking about the program, and they ask me, Maggie, what should I do while I'm preparing? What should I do while I'm applying? What should I do before the course? How should I prepare? I'm like, dude, code as much as you can, because you're just gonna be that much more ready to learn when you come in.
So I'm probably the example of that partner that she had who didn't do a lot of prep work. I got into App Academy, and then Kush basically said, "Hey, I think you should join a cohort 2 months down the line." I was like, "No, I really want to make this change. Let's go for the August one at the time." And it gave me, I think you're supposed to do the pre-work about 2 or 3 weeks ahead. I got accepted.
Sorry, it's required now. 3-week prep work required.
Okay,
3-week
required at the
prep
time.
Work course.
At the time, it was optional, not so much.
I got in 3 weeks before the program, and so I turned in my prep work about a week beforehand. But had I gone back and done App Academy all over, prep work, and code, I would have tried to get everything down. I think I walked in today not knowing how. I was still trying to. I learned C and MATLAB in college, so I'm still programming using blocks of while and for statements, which you don't normally do in Ruby. I haven't really seen a use for it yet. So it's really about that prep work right there. The other part about App Academy is just the community. You're with 40 some people.
Now 66 in San Francisco.
Who are in probably the same boat as you throughout your 9 to 12 weeks. You're in this journey together, learning the same things. Some people pick it up faster, some people don't. But you're just working together. If you need help, people are there for you. If you need to put in time and ask the TAs are there for you. TAs were really, really helpful. Shouts to Will Hastings. He really helped me a lot, and whenever we needed help.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is that some people I noticed actually had some pretty long commutes, just on a very different topic. But so if you can keep your, I don't know if you live in the city or not, if you're looking for an apartment, try to find somewhere close, because you don't want to be commuting and wasting that time, not being able to rest or get ready for the next day. Another thing too is it sounds obvious, but don't just read some code. Although that is helpful, to look at what other people did, but definitely try it out. Get the muscle memory of actually coding out something that you see, because that'll be really helpful. And if you do have a background in coding, or if you're just someone who's a little bit less likely to sort of pick something up because you think, oh, the way I've been doing it is better, be prepared to just take that off and just give it a shot. See, well, I was very against explicit returns in Ruby. We actually write return at first because I was used to Java, and then now I would never do that because it's just so much better to sort of do things the Ruby way. But I had to admit okay, maybe I'm doing it wrong, and see how they're doing it and try it out first. So yeah.
Great. So I think we can now get to the fun part, the 3-week prep course that we have that's dedicated to the job search. So what was your guys' experience job searching with App Academy? What it was structured for you, and how did everything go?
I can start. So I was really skeptical about that part, and we had a different person who was in charge of the job search, and I went to him as soon as the course was over, and I was like, can I schedule a one-on-one with you and talk about this, because I'm going to bomb at this part, and you need to help me because you're not going to get paid, right? And we talked about it. There there was like some lectures about it. There was a whole complete course that was like, so instead of going in with like lectures every day in pair programming, there was like, it wasn't that formalized, but there was still like day-to-day activities and guidelines. And I like stuck with that even though it was kind of optional. So long story short,
Not optional now. Not optional now.
Okay. So like, I know, in fact, like I'm part of the, like the team. We're trying to like make that part better and make it even more successful. But I got my first job offer a week after I sent out my first resume. I stopped my job search 3 weeks in, and I had 6 offers at the time. And I decided that that was enough for me to choose something that I was really, really happy with. So, yeah, App Academy worked for me.
I think the job curriculum is probably App Academy's strongest point, just because of their money-making incentive. They would not be around here if they weren't getting paid. So it's in their best interest to make that the best part about their job. Things like pairing for your whiteboarding questions. Coding on a text editor is very different than a whiteboard. You can't go back and add new lines, make notes on the side as a new attribute. So being able to whiteboard very well, definitely up there. You should definitely practice it because it's not the same skills. Things like, everyone's around, everyone's applying at the same job. You kind of, twist around the job applications you have. Hey, Ronnie, you applied at, I don't know, Facebook didn't get in. Great. What did they ask? Tell me how to prep, and I'll apply, and I'll give you the other one, which is very handy. It's a lot of preparation. Also, a lot of things that people talk about their salary. They know how much they got, which is a huge taboo like in regular society, and in other boot camps. So I will know if I'm getting ripped off, or I know what to expect, which incentivizes me because we all want the better offer, and incentivizes App Academy because it's bigger percentage. So definitely that. Do the whiteboarding questions. The questions that are in the whiteboarding curriculum I've gotten those in interviews. Like, you will find them. And just being, just the general practice of, hey, apply to all the companies that you don't care about first, and make sure you have 100 applications out because it's a numbers game. And then get those interviews and use those interviews to practice. Easily conceptual, easy to think about, but no one has actually pointed it out before until I went to App Academy. So I think that's definitely their best job. Or sitting you down, it's like, okay, let's develop your elevator pitch of your story. Like, that will be a one-on-one. Like, you should have your life story and make it a trailer for a movie, because you will have to say that in your phone screens. So a lot of good examples, but job curriculum top notch.
I know a lot of us here, or several of us, also interview a lot for the companies that we work for. I very much interview a lot for the company that I work for, and App Academy has an excellent interview prep curriculum. My personal plan, should I ever quit my job, would be to literally go back to App Academy and do their pair boarding again, because I'm really out of interview shape, and I really was in good interview shape when I was going through App Academy's interview prep.
Fun fact, you can do that. So anyone can do that, actually. So,
just go do it again if you want.
Yeah, so fun fact, any alumni can, no, you can not go through like App Academy unless you guys want to learn how to do code again. But no, all alumni are welcome to come back, and for any time if they need to practice with interviewing skills, resume, portfolio, all that jazz, we do have the resources there readily available for you. We're not looking for you guys to find your first job. We're really looking for you guys to find your career. So fun fact of the day.
I would also add that, like, what was helpful for me when I was like, application number, whatever, like I wouldn't even remember. It was like, get someone else to like read your app and vice versa, because it's a lot easier, at least I think mentally, when you're tired, just read someone else's and then offer them like new critiques. And then they might even be like willing to like, give you some questions, then even give you like a mock interview, like, okay, like why do you want to work at like company X? And then sort of go off of that. Similar to how you would do like the interview prep for App Academy when you're just trying to apply. It is sort of similar, like to practice all things you expect to see. And also like don't get too hung up on like one company. Like that does happen, and like there are so many different reasons and things that happen that you just have to remember, like there are a lot of companies out there. It's San Francisco, it's the Bay Area, so yeah, just keep that in mind.
It's like the Just Keep Swimming song from Finding Nemo, right?
Yeah. Just keep applying.
Yeah.
I think I probably had one of the most unique job searches. Won't go too much into it, but basically I met people that were looking for junior engineers, and I told them I was from App Academy, and they're like, oh, we have 4 people from App Academy currently working. 2 of them are like 2 of our best programmers. Well, let's set you up with the interview. Ended up getting the offer, but it goes to show you the name that App Academy, the junior engineers that come out of App Academy, the level that they're at, that App Academy has a great name in this industry. I don't know everyone else's or other boot camps like name out there because I haven't really talked with other ones, but definitely App Academy is one of the top tier coding boot camps.
Just a second, what Maggie said about like interviews, like I do a lot of interviews. I'm on the interview panel. Like people are terrible at it. People hate it. Like people who have been in the industry for a long time, people that outrank me by several tiers, they talk about how much they dread it, how bad they are at it, how ill prepared they are, and it's kind of amazing. Like when I hear, like I've made like one-off comments about stuff that we learn in App Academy, they're like, hang on, I need to write this down. Like that's a great idea. I mean, in terms of salary negotiation, in terms of the plan of all of the practice, like the first time I looked at a resume and was trying to screen them and do a phone screen, I was like, this person has like, 3.98 GPA in computer science from a top Ivy League school. They had an internship at Google. They had all of this stuff. I'm like, who am I to interview them? And I got off the phone and I was like, I can't bring this person on site because that was horrible. And that happens over and over again where it's like, I'm sure they know their stuff, but like they did not prepare at all. And App Academy, like at the end of it, like I loved interviewing just because like I had it down. I knew what I was doing and I could just walk in there. And like, honestly, like that is like a service by itself. Like I would pay money for just the jobs curriculum of App Academy, like hands down. Like people, like my coworkers come to me for advice if they want to do a job search, and I just pass on like this App Academy standard stuff, and they're like, oh, that's great.
I also really enjoyed interviewing. It was fun.
You guys are some of the lucky few. All right. So can you guys give us any advice to anyone who's considering joining App Academy? What's the one last piece of advice you would want to give someone?
Crap.
Code.
Just really be able to imagine yourself coding. I mean, if you're going through some of these exercises and you like absolutely dread it, maybe this isn't for you. But for those who do enjoy it like I did, like App Academy was awesome. And App Academy, like a lot of people hate on these boot camps that come out saying, but really in reality, they expect like this top tier engineer who has 20 years of experience, maybe outdated experience, but 20 years of like experience to come out of a boot camp, and it's really not feasible. App Academy is there to be the start in a new direction of your career, in programming or in tech. You're going to continue to learn no matter what, and the skills that you pick up at App Academy help you to learn in the long run.
I would just say that it's important to like stay on it and stay focused, but also just like have a good time. Like take some time, the little time you have to sort of be like, hey, this is really cool that I know how to do this. Like take some time to look back, especially in like week 4 or 5 when things start picking up, and be like, I've actually learned like a lot so far, and that's very cool. Like, a couple weeks ago, I would have gotten stuck like on so many different steps, just trying to make this like, one thing render on the page. So like I'd say that like don't forget that you're having a good time and what you've learned, but also like get to know some of the people you're going with who are actually going to be in that cohort. Like some of my like friends I still keep in touch with and hang out with. We did App Academy together, didn't know each other beforehand, and like we just still hang out. So that's I think makes it a lot more like enjoyable if you have someone like suffering together. So
if you want new friends, join App Academy.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. So we wanted to take this time to open it up to the floor. If anyone has any questions for our lovely panel, you can go ahead and ask. Anyone? Great. So the question was, did you do the coding challenges in a different language?
Yeah. I did everything in Python up until the last test. I was one of the people who got accepted into a cohort with less than a month's notice. And so I was learning Ruby syntax up until like the last day. And that definitely made, I think, the first week a little bit harder. But I think your number one focus should be on how to like write and structure good code and think programmatically. If you can do that and solve the problem, that's better than like struggling in a different language. So like I did not actually really start taking up Ruby until just before taking App Academy. I got into App Academy using Python.
Yeah. To be fair though, Python is very similar to Ruby in a lot of different ways. I think it very much depends on what language you do the coding challenges in. Because I know people that did all the coding challenges in like C and what is it? Not C++, Objective-C. They were iOS developers previously, and I know that they really struggled through the course because it's such a different language. But Python, on the other hand, is very similar. So yeah, I would say that it's probably worth your time to learn Ruby to some extent before you start doing the coding challenges, unless it happens that the other language that you would do it in is Python, and then you're probably fine actually. But any other language, and there are many. I mean, I could have done it in R, and that would have been a disaster. So.
On that note, like I probably wouldn't recommend it, especially if you already know Python. Like Maggie said, they're very similar. I went from like MATLAB, which is barely a programming language, to learning Ruby in a couple of weeks. Your time is going to be a lot easier, but you're going to reap a lot more benefits from learning Ruby because you're going to get the next coding challenge. Eventually, you're just postponing the inevitable. And that's also a rule in general for application processes when you're applying for a job. Even though sometimes they say, oh, code in whatever language you want. Reality is you should probably figure out what they code in, do it in that, because otherwise they're going to either, it's happened to me, I've had to grade a homework in PHP. I was like, I've never done PHP, so I'm going to grade you really hard. Or if I can't understand it, I'm going to pass you over. Or I'm going to find the one person in the company that knows PHP, which usually happens to be one of the senior people, and they're going to code you grade you harder on it. So for Python specifically, I would say spend a couple of weeks. It's not going to be that different, but you're going to reap most of the benefits, a lot more benefits than not doing it.
Any other questions? So I just want to clarify. So once you're accepted into App Academy, you have weekly assessments. Is that what you're referring to? So you have weekly assessments, and Jason's just asking, how did the assessments affect your guys' duration and stay at App Academy?
I have a very good. That was so like I said earlier, when I came in, I was definitely one of the people that knew the least or had the least experience programming. So I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna get kicked out because you can fail too. Otherwise, you're out. So I would say that was my main stress factor, I would call it, to really know what I'm doing. Having something every Monday at 9 a.m. really keeps you in check, and knowing that you really can't fail them. And honestly, that I think I got 100 for all of them except for one. So I'd never fail anything. So point is they're really good motivator.
I failed assessment number 2, and that lit a fire under my ass the rest of the time. The rest of the time, 100% everything. No, I didn't want to take a risk. I didn't want to get kicked out and be like, now I got to put my life on pause for another couple of months.
Yeah, I'll just say that, yeah, I really would recommend trying your hardest not to fail that first assessment where you're sort of, you don't know exactly what you're doing. And because some of the people I saw who had failed the first one were just so stressed out like the entire time that they couldn't really enjoy it as much because they were just freaking out. They knew like if they fail the next one, like what's going to happen. So, and then also like there was sort of a period at the end of near the end of the course when it's the last assessment. And so those of us who didn't fail one were sort of like, oh, well, yeah, sort of, yeah. Yeah, you do. So there's sort of like that motivation to just, I don't know, it really was stressful. I kind of blocked it out, I guess. That's why I forget for the earlier questions. But I just like, it's the same thing for like the prep. Just like the questions are going to be similar when they give you those prep. So just like if you know those cold, then like you'll probably do well. So yeah, like practice those a lot.
For the members of the audience who are very deadline driven, as I am, they really helped me. I feel like the assessments. I mean, more than we talk about all the pressure that the assessments kind of put on people, but for me, it was really it was a really great way to motivate me to learn kind of the specific things that were being tested, and the tests are very comprehensive. It also helped me learn how to read coding tests because tests are of course unit tests on Ruby, and that's actually a great skill. I mean, we use a very similar testing platform at my job, and so it was an excellent motivator to work hard and to learn everything that I need to learn. But also really helped me learn a great skill of test-driven development.
The other thing that it really helps you with is finding your own bugs. When the clock is ticking and you know that this is right, but something in it is wrong and you can't find it, like you get really good at catching bugs, and that's a great life skill too.
Great. Any other questions? So the question was, what did you get from the program? And what would be the difference if you tried doing it on your own?
I'll take that because oh man, like I mean people said to me when I was doing the program, it definitely occurred to me. Don't worry, it was like, oh, I could learn this on my own. But here's the thing, when I learn things on my own, and I'm like incredibly devoted to my Coursera courses and online courses, like free courses. I have a personal policy of not paying for online courses, but oh well. I don't necessarily go as deep as I need to in topics. I don't learn everything. I am, again, very deadline driven. I'm very reward driven. And I know that about myself, and I tend to do enough to do really well on things like tests and quizzes, but not necessarily devote myself to learning the material the way I would really need to learn it if I were going to use it for my job. So I wanted to do App Academy because I wanted some legitimacy in the endeavor that I was kind of undertaking. And I wanted the job assistance, but I also wanted to make sure that I really learned the material. Because as much as that, I know I'm a smart person and I know I'm capable of learning many things. I was not entirely sure that somebody else would be convinced, and also I know that I won't learn it as well unless somebody is making me sit down and learn it very thoroughly. So that was my motivation.
I mean, the single biggest thing I think is like what happens when you're studying on your own and you get stuck and you can't like find your way out of it. Either you can't find the bug or you just don't know how to solve the problem, right? Like having TAs there, having other people that are working there to lift you out of that is the primary thing that you're paying for. The other thing is like, again, being able to work with other people and getting to recognize what is good code, what is bad code, and having my own code reviewed, right? Like if I just write a solution, I know that it works, but I don't know if it is a hacky piece of shit or if this is like super elegant, right? And I don't know how to, again, like cultivate that taste until I've experienced it, until I've had people critique it. And then I know like I'm writing like good code that other people will find like valuable. And then also again in the job curriculum, like just having all of your friends there boost each other up when you're doing the job search and having that whole system. Like a lot of people had huge salary increases from their old job to this, right? Like it's not unusual to get like 2 times your salary or 3 times your salary. Like when I was weighing my jobs offers, every single one of them is one that I would have killed to have gotten like even an internship before. And like I would have taken a much lower salary. Like honestly, like I made I mean if you just want to be materialistic about it, like there's a lot of money on the line, and having people who are going through it and like talking about negotiations, understanding what the market is like, and just like having that support like meant that at the end of the day my paycheck is a lot bigger than it would have been. I would have applied to less companies, taken the first job. I wouldn't have gotten all of the practice in interviewing and known what the market was like. And it would have taken, I would say, like another 2 or 3 years to get to where I am right now.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything that's been said. But I do think that people have different motivations, like what's going to get them to do the best work. So for me, at least, like I would not underestimate like how important it is to have a coach basically telling you like, you know, do this, you have to do it by Monday, you know. Otherwise, like the year previous, I told myself like I was gonna start learning some of this web stuff because it's cool. I like the idea of it, and then like a year later, like I had done like some projects, but really not gotten to the point I wanted. Um, and also like it's sort of already been said, but like you might be able to find some of these online programs that or projects, whatever, that tell you like, you know, just do this and finish it, and then you get a passing grade or whatever. But if there's no one reviewing it and telling you how good your code is, you may have like finished it, it may work, but that's not necessarily good coding practice, and it's not the kind of thing, like I know this firsthand, like you don't want to see that in a big project with like 10 other people and some code that's not written very well just because you want to get something done. There's a lot more to it than that. So I think that was like a lot of the value for me in what App Academy was.
I also don't know many people who have the straight up diligence to sit at a computer for 9 hours of their day, you know, just coding. And especially at the number of projects that you do in App Academy, like every day is a different project. A day could be 2 different separate projects, and you're doing it. As Ronnie said, when you get stuck, like some people, they can get stuck and try to work over it overnight, and then it's just 2 lines of code that's wrong. Whereas like at App Academy, you have TAs, you have people looking over your shoulder that can help you, and instead of, you know, overnight or taking overnight to find a bug, it takes 10 minutes. You're not stuck there for 8 hours versus 10 minutes.
I just want to add one more thing. I do know people who have done the work and studied themselves and gotten themselves a junior developer position without ever, you know, going through any sort of program or getting any sort of degree. And they're, you know, the ones that get jobs by and large are very smart people, because you have to be smart and dedicated to do that sort of thing yourself. However, they also have huge gaps in their knowledge. Like it's like incredibly like typical to see somebody come in and they do really well on your coding challenges and things, but they just don't really perform that well when you bring them into the work environment. And it's I think there's a certain there's a certain sort of person that can sit for 10 hours a day in front of a screen and not interact with anyone else and just do their work. And it's much better for you personally to be with other people, learning with other people. It will just be a big gain.
I would just try it out. Try learning by yourself for 3 months, and then see if you can get a job. If you can, then you just save yourself a lot of money. It's 3 months. Give it a shot.
Touche. Touche.
Also, just the curriculum of App Academies, it's always growing and developing. Every cohort, there's a next iteration of the program for the next cohort. There's always changes being made, improvements to different assignments, feedback going. It's just a constant feedback loop. Cohort goes through it. What didn't work with this project? What did work? How can we improve it? And they continuously improve the curriculum, and it's always there for you. There's times where I do reference some of the old App Academy work, job search stuff too as well. It's always there for you for the life, or as long as GitHub is up.
Yeah. And the other thing is that people talk a lot in interviews about the power of networking. Even if your first job, everybody's on the same playing field, right? You graduate from App Academy, you have 65 people now who are working in different companies, right? And so 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, people talk to each other about referrals and that kind of thing, and that network is almost worth it by itself. In terms of I know people at Google, I know people at Uber, I know people at Twitter, all the top name companies, I know people, and I know what's going on in the industry much better. And so, not just getting your first job, but your next job, you have connections now that you would not have if you were doing this by yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say something really similar, but just to give a story to just explain that. My interviewer, who I ended up working for my current company, he had done App Academy a year before me, and he had also done a feed reader for his final project. And so half of my interview with him was just oh, my feed reader was doing this, and what did you like about App Academy? So I think it's it's very much true what you're talking about with the networking part of it.
I think Sarah mentioned about 800 App Academy grads. There are 800 people that have gone through a program that you could go through, and they know that when you come out of it, you have a certain skill set, and they can quickly say, hey, that's something we want.
Great. So you guys, I think we might have time for one final question. Does anybody have? Go ahead. What's your question? I'll try to interpret. Maybe it was the work that's given in actually doing the assessments. How much did you utilize it, per se, or how? And then.
All right. Okay. I think I understand. No, the assessments are very. They really are very similar to the prep work that we're given. So it's not, people. I guess I have many people don't miss a single question on any of assessments. I mean, there's a good chunk of people that just literally never miss any question. First of all, it should be known. It's not like taking a test in school. You're not flying blind. First of all, you have a console, you're coding and you have a console and you run your code and you see the test and you can see how they fail, and you have an hour, half an hour. It depends on the assessment. To finish all of these, to make all the tests pass. And so really, what you're doing in the assessments is actually very similar to what you would do at home. And they give you a practice assessment that has tests that are that has a task and tests that are very similar to what you're going to get on the assessment. And it really is, in my opinion, just a matter of putting in the time I think that if you end up struggling a lot when you take the test, it's generally indicative of something a little bit more fundamental, like a fundamental challenge debugging things or reading code. It's very rarely, oh, I just didn't learn I just didn't put in the time to learn the material. If you put in the time, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I would. If are you sort of asking like if it's a matter of like being able to like remember these things and get used to it, or versus like some really hard like conceptual thing to wrap your head around? Okay. Yeah, if I would, I would say that it's a lot less of some really deep conceptual issues. I think it's a lot more of like just learning how to do what they're teaching you, and learning how to like pass these like prep tests that they give you. So yeah, I think actually just to level with you, I think the tests were like really similar to the ones that they gave you for practice. And if you if you memorize the practice ones, like you'll probably pass the tests. And I think excuse me. I think like something like only 2 people didn't end up completing my cohort of like 30 something or more. So and one of them I think wasn't for like test reasons. So yeah, I mean like honestly the main reason to just do well on the test is just because like I was saying before, like you don't want to be stressed out and like have to really grind down for each test when there could be more time when you're spending on like bonus questions, like reading things like related but not necessarily directly related to what the topic is. That's my advice.
The test, the practice test they give you is so similar that the real test the real assessment should not be a surprise to you. The surprise that might come to you is just really getting it down. With those assessments, because your time, you don't have a whole day to work on this anymore. You have to do it in an hour. The practice that you put in before those assessments now become a matter of like speed and accuracy. How fast can I get these tests to pass as quickly as possible? And really, you put in the work. I probably did each practice assessment 3 or 4 times, just decreasing my time every time just to get those patterns down set. And it really helped me, after I failed assessment number 2.
Great. I think that's all the time that we have today. So everyone, please give a quick round of applause to our lovely, lovely panel. Thank you for your guys' time. And thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to grab me or anyone who has black text on their name badge, because we're staff. I like the text, yeah. Ah.
If you noticed it was color-coded, that was part of the test.
All right, you guys. Have a good night.
Good night.